Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bxb'S Bits and Bobs, episode 37. 37. That was a good start, isn't it? Happy Holidays edition. This is our final episode of 2017, and ringing out the gear with me is Joel, Home Counties editor.
Hello.
And Richard Worrell, Reviews editor. And Frank.
And Frank. You can probably hear Frank through this episode because I've cranked up my volume a bit. And
the official mascot. He's had a year, hasn't he? Everybody's had a year.
He's had a tough time this year.
He has had a tough time, definitely. But the reason it's the last episode, probably, possibly, maybe of the year, like I said, me and Joel were talking before, we might throw something together. But if we stuck to our regular schedule, the next one would be a week before Christmas, which feels a bit crazy. Everybody's going to have family stuff on and all kinds of other things. And talking about family stuff, Joel, family stuff.
Yeah, I now have a bigger family. So yeah, my
spawned
my new son arrived. Orson, named after Orson Welles, the voice of Unicron from Transformers the movie.
Not Orson,
most famous.
Not Orson Scott, the famous racist.
No,
okay.
I've not even heard of that guy.
I can tell because you named your son Orson.
Yeah.
You probably. Orson. Look up Orson Scott Card when you get a minute. Famous science fiction writer, famously racist and right wing. Brilliant.
Right. Okay. So thanks for killing that for me.
Should have called me, bro. Should have called me. You know, before you wrote that form out, should have been like, "Hey Ben, do you know any psychos called Orson?" Could have pointed him out.
That's the hardest thing. Nothing makes you judge people more than trying to pick a name for a child, I don't think, because you literally go any name that's mentioned, you think of anybody you ever know who's had that name, and then sort of it's a fun exercise.
Not to stay away from Adolf. It's a risky one even now. Donald probably wouldn't be the hottest choice right now either. Just thinking, little Donny. Well, what else? I mean, like, yeah, every name has positive and negative connotations.
Yeah.
There are no Nigels nowadays, are there? I wonder why.
Well, because Nigel Mansell isn't the hot Formula One driver he used to be.
I'm assuming it's to do with Farage, I'm guessing.
I can't think of many like serial killer Bens. If you guys can think of any really awful Bens, I'd be kind of.
Was it Ben Bundy or Ted? No, it was Ted Bundy, wasn't it?
Ted Bundy, yeah. Problem with your name, Richard, is that there's like 400 connotations for it.
There's Ben Richards off The Running Man. He was a good guy.
That's not it's not a real person, but yeah,
I'll take
us combined. Killer combo.
So I mean, Tricky Dicky. I always think of when I hear Richard. Mr. Nixon is the one that always comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
So Joel, what about Joel's? Any Joel's? Psycho Killer Joel,
director of the bad Batman movies.
Lead character in Last of Us.
Yes. I was going to say Joel Schumacher, however, not tarred with any kind of sexual assault brushes yet. So waiting. It seems inevitable, really. But
I think we've really seen the tip of the Hollywood iceberg. So let's just see
it's
surfaces.
That shit is just beginning.
Yeah,
that shit is just beginning. Oh yeah. But no, congratulations, mate. And seriously though. When I heard the name Orson, I thought fucking awesome name. Like that, you don't hear that name. You know, it's not sort of one of the stupid like postmodern weird names. It's like a classical name. And I really dug that. I was like, that's a cool choice. Yeah.
Cheers. Yeah, thanks. It was none of the midwives in the hospital had ever come across it before, because every one of them was like, oh, that's a beautiful name. How do you spell it? Kind of, and then you would explain that it's after Orson Welles, and you know, some of the older midwives would get it. So the younger ones were like, who's Orson Welles and things. So yeah, because I have a long surname, we have to choose a short first name. Otherwise our children are screwed when it comes to filling in those exam forms where you have like limited numbers of boxes to put your names in and stuff. So yeah, trying to come up with something. I've
always had problems. I've always had problems because I have 5 names in my full name. And a 3-syllable first name if you write it out properly. So it's that's always been a thing. Yeah, forms. Yeah, I've had problems with that my whole life. Like filling out my passport renewal. I literally I got a new I sorted out like a new bank account credit card recently, and just I had to put just initials for everything except the surname because I couldn't actually fit the names in. So good choices, very sensible. Is your name really long as well, Richard, in the middle?
Yeah, I've got 2 middle names.
Oh, Oh, well, let's not give it all out now because we don't want to be, identity thefted up the arse because we're doing this on the internet. But yeah, I'll tell you guys after the show. Yeah, so that's the biggest news, isn't it? Really, from the last 2 weeks, you don't get much bigger than a new birth, so that's fantastic. What about you, Richard? Have you been up to anything banal or less interesting, almost certainly, than that, considering you're probably still snowed under with 2,500 tons of work?
Definitely less interesting than that. I don't know. Nothing exciting. Yeah, work. I'm in Clevedon tomorrow to move Clevedon Job Centre. Whoop, whoop. And then Bristol.
Clevedon, massive.
And Bristol the week after that. And then I'll move in other job centres throughout January in a town near you.
So
come by, say hi.
If you're really angry that your job set is about to move, this is to direct your rage at.
I don't know much either. I haven't seen any films. I just caught up on Star Trek on Netflix up to the break it's on, and was massively underwhelmed by most of it. Watching some Punisher, that's been okay. Guys, see Punisher?
I'm one episode in. Quite brutal. Cool. Enjoying it so far.
Quite brutal. I guess you're talking about the bit, the construction bit, and then the bit in the restaurant. It's not that the whole thing, like all the way through.
I was thinking more
it slows down a lot.
The cold quickness of the bedroom scene, just done. Have you forgotten already? The whole point.
No idea what you're talking about.
I can't remember. I'm not going to spoil it.
I'm up to like episode 7, I suppose, and yeah, it's
how many is there? 10,
13, I want to say.
Yeah,
quite a long one. It's okay. There's some really poor choices in there and some really good ones, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. Definitely better than Iron Fist and Defenders, though. Definitely better than those. And John Bernthal is just brilliant in the lead, really, really good. Just killing it, isn't he? Like literally and figuratively.
Doesn't link into the other ones, though, does it? Because I've kind of skipped from midway through Jessica Jones, still not caught up.
There's like a couple of characters that show up, but it's not. Well, maybe only one actually, but it's nothing you'll miss out on. It'll be fine. Yeah, but other than that, I thought I'd be really quiet with games right now and stuff, and I wasn't expecting to have all this stuff to play all of a sudden and things at this time of year. I really thought once Battlefront 2 was done, I was going to be able to get in my backlog, and I've been able to do it a little bit, but not as much as I wanted to yet. Another one of the reasons why I'm thinking we take a break until the new year before we come back with the Game of the Year podcasts. But yeah, should we, Joel? I'll let you lead on the latest updates around Star Wars Battlefront 2, and the witch hunt continues. So
yeah, well, it's not been too much. The only real progression since we last talked about it 2 weeks ago is that I think the Belgian government have now discussed and deemed that they believe loot boxes are a form of gambling. So they're going to raise it up to the European Union kind of level of jurisdiction, court-y. I'm not sure if it goes to the law or the courts or whatever, but they're going to obviously try and press that in the EU. That could create some... It's obviously the start potentially of an interesting legal look into it. We'll see how that pans out.
And it won't matter for us either.
No, but possibly because by the time it's resolved, the Brexit should be complete. I'm guessing it's got to happen by March 2019. So,
nope.
Yeah, whether or not, I guess we'll be. We all wish it wasn't happening. Yeah, hopefully it will fall apart and we'll just stay in. That would be ideal for me. But and yeah, the second part.
Basically, EA's stock took a hit off the back of all the controversy.
This was a bit of a I've been checking their stock price for quite a while, and although it depends on what point you look at it on the graph, but it's not actually really taken much of a hit. That's kind of like a piece of misinformation. Their stock price has been relatively stable. In fact, I'll check it now. This is
live stock updates with Bxb'S, Bits and Bobs.
So let's have a look.
While he's looking for stock, that Belgian law move, it wasn't just Belgium. There's a few American states moving into ban loot boxes as well. I think
Hawaii, I think it was. Yeah, Hawaii have picked up on it as well, and their governor, I believe, is wanting to push it up to Congress, I think, for review now as well. So
people said Hawaii was laid back. I mean, damn, Jesus, chill out, man. Catch a wave or something.
Well, they probably are. If you're in Hawaii, you're probably not playing Battlefront 2 very much.
I would be on the beach. Most fucking certainly. No, I also posted you guys a link to a story that came up just like literally an hour ago on Kotaku, who had an interview with a young man, age 19 now, who was one of these whales in the microtransaction scene. You know, somebody who'd spent thousands of dollars in just a handful of different games. He spent over 20 grand in a few years. But basically, he had a psychological disposition to gambling and to chance-based games and to those sort of elements. And it really took advantage of his sort of vulnerable state. I think we were talking about this in a sort of theoretical way 2 weeks ago. But that was an interesting article because they actually found a real example of exactly the kinds of problems that this sort of system takes advantage of, and is sort of predatory towards. And I just thought it was interesting to read.
He started as a child as well.
Yeah, he was 13. He was talking about, yeah, and he got psychological help this year, and he's started to move away from it. Like he was gambling in CS:GO and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, huge amounts of money. Like he wasn't making a lot of money in the first place. He was like had a part-time job at some kind of fast food place and stuff like that. And basically, he's saying up to 1.90% of his income was being poured into microtransactions. So for somebody with not much income in the first place, and look, I mean, the argument would be it's free market economy, it's your choice, it's your life. We don't want to, liberty and all that stuff. The American argument would certainly be that, and that's his problem. But I don't think anybody would miss them. But there is a flip side to it, which is all these free-to-play games that have popped up on mobile and other platforms now, which basically only monetize their game through microtransactions. And many of them are now worrying about their livelihoods, those developers, because big older EAs and the Activisions and the larger developers/publishers have abused the system to a point where there could now be a huge social sort of revolt by all gamers against this type of monetization, to the point where it might be made illegal. So
I don't know. Do you sympathize with
people could be out of jobs?
I don't have a great deal of sympathy because those sort of games are barely games, if we're honest. Are they?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that, man. I mean, you're talking about so the iOS platform. It got to a point, especially on that platform, where you could only really sell a game if it was free or less than $1. So all of those games were microtransaction supported as their only form of income. And I do believe previous contributor to the podcast and the website, Mr. Adam, is even working in that sector now. Though I haven't spoken to him in a while, but to be fair, that's not necessarily a bad business if you're not charging anything for the game, is it? I mean, the problem has arisen from these AAA games, these $60 games, £50 games, which have then also got microtransactions up the wazoo. And let's not forget, Microsoft has been massively guilty of this.
Yep.
All their current releases have got huge amounts of microtransactions in there as well, from Forza to Halo to Gears, you name it. All their first-party titles have it. Those are the ones that are breaking the system. Those are the ones that are breaking this as a business model. And there will be job losses in these smaller developers. People won't be able to afford to continue making games, because if that's their only way of making money and nobody's going to use it, or it's going to get banned, You say you don't have a lot of sympathy for it, Richard. But I mean, do you see it as the same thing, or do you not see there's a difference? I think there's a difference.
Well, the way I see it is if someone is going to fall foul of new rules that deem what they're doing as gambling, then they're on the wrong side of this practice. And there are degrees to microtransactions and how you apply them, what you charge for them, and what they do once you've bought them. Games can survive with microtransactions without it being a gambling proposition. It can just be something that you fancy buying as a one-off thing. Or it might just be something cosmetic that, granted, the guy that we're talking about, he did spend lots on cosmetic microtransactions as well.
Overwatch was cited as one of the ones that he put a lot of money into, for example. Yes.
But his habit was formed through having to spend money to be competitive in a competitive game.
Yes.
And that's where the line is drawn to me. Now, if a game is built around payments so far that you can't actually play it properly without repeatedly putting money into it, those games deserve to die. I have no sympathy for people making those games because they're not really making a game. All of them are in business.
I don't.
You know, they want to sell as much as they can, but they're just vehicles.
Have you never played? Have you never
money.
played a freemium game and gone, "That's a really good game. I've not paid any money for this. I'm going to support them with some microtransaction stuff and put some money into the platform that way." You've never done that.
Yeah, a few, but some.
Yeah. So why do you think those aren't games?
Well, some of them are. I'm not saying no game with microtransactions is a real game.
Okay, that's what it sounded like.
The ones that are most severely guilty of, you know, abusing and manipulating its customers, I don't think really qualify as games. The sort of thing where you press a button, you got to wait for 6 hours for the next thing to come up, or you pay $1. They're not games. They're just clickers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sort of thing. Though I've played many an idle clicker and had much fun playing them, and I'd still consider them a game. However, they weren't necessarily microtransaction filled clicker games. So it's man, I don't think this debate is one necessarily about defining what isn't a game. However, what I think it will be is EA press conference E3 next year. Guys, we've listened. There will be no more microtransactions in any of our games, cosmetic or pay to win. However, we'll be putting the price up on everything from $60 to $80.
Well,
that's my prediction for next year. I feel like they've got to do something, and you know, there is a growing feeling on places like Reddit and GAF, and places like, well, when GAF still existed, I suppose, and places like Reddit, we'll say, towards, yeah, okay, we will accept a price increase, but I really wonder if gamers truly will.
Well,
you know,
they need
we'll
to
see what happens.
We have got a price increase. I mean, how much did you pay for Battlefront? Well, you got it for review, didn't you? But I got it for review,
but I then bought the special edition upgrade.
Yeah, but I spent.
So that's what you're talking about. Yeah,
it's not uncommon for games to charge 70 or 80 quid.
There is, however, a base. There is, however, a baseline edition of all of these games. That is the $60, the £55 game. And I think the perception is, you know, the way the marketing works is that you can go and buy that game for that price, and that base price from the EAs and the Activisions definitely, and then probably the first parties as well. If they are losing this additional revenue stream, which even if these laws don't pass and stuff like that, if there's not legislative change, the one thing the video game industry has tried to do over the years is self-regulate. So I do believe they'll just have to change, because the perception now is so negative. Any game with this system in place is going to get so hammered at release that they know they're going to have to pull these systems out, which means how else do you monetize it? You put the price up.
Well, I think they should charge for the product what it costs to make the product within, you know, that's what all the businesses I work in, we manufacture physical products, we charge plus our margins. It's
well, there you go. That's the bit. Plus your margin. You're not going to charge your cost. You have to make money. But they're a business.
Let's think about this in other fashions, right? The prices of games have been relatively constant. Digital distribution came in, which greatly reduces the distribution costs. You haven't got to print physical products. You don't have to ship them. You don't have to hold them in holdings. You don't have to get them to storefronts. You don't have to have retail space.
Also eliminates digital games. Second-hand market.
Yeah, digital games are priced higher than physical counterparts currently. Now, obviously, that's probably some agreement, I feel, with physical retail stores. They don't want to cannibalize those markets and piss off the retailers that they rely on at the moment. But one could argue that digital games should ultimately be cheaper to produce. Purely digital distributed games should be cheaper to produce than their retail physical counterparts. So,
but the vast majority
should give them more money to put into development, whilst keeping the prices of the games constant.
I think distribution and manufacture cost is quite minor compared to development and marketing cost. So I don't think to press a Blu-ray, per unit is in the very low pennies area.
Yeah, probably get 100 Blu-rays for a penny at a large volume.
And and shipping is you're doing it in bulk. via distribution centers. Again, that's not ridiculous. And you know, the extrapolation of your argument would be, oh well, you'd lower the prices on digital because you don't have to pay those costs. So retail goes away. Oh, but now we've just lost, you know, how many thousands of jobs because GameStop and Gamers had to close and all of that kind of thing. So there is always a knock on, and I don't think losing brick and mortar is necessarily a good thing. I think those businesses certainly need to pivot away from just selling games, which I think they are doing and trying. But again, it's like everything is connected, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So if you lose brick and mortar, you lose a huge amount of marketing and visibility for the product. So when you do that, what happens to the industry? Does the whole industry shrink? Do games sell less? Developers and publishers go under? I mean, you know, that's the concerns. That's what those guys will be thinking about.
When you make a product, right? You don't basically say, right, we're going to sell this product at a loss and hope that everyone buys the sort of extra software license or something, post it to try and, you know, make the books go black from red. You've got to price it, in my mind, to hit, you know, to make sure you stay on the black from the off. And then, you know, I think if the price of games has been, I can remember paying £50 for N64 games.
I paid 80 quid
nearly
for a
20 years ago. Yeah,
I paid £80 for this game. I remember doing that.
You know, prices of games have been relatively constant for 2 decades. If they start creeping up, I don't think that's the end. As long as I'm getting the quality and the content, I'll be happy. It's when I start paying large inflated sums of cash and getting poorer experiences that's what will piss me off. I don't mind paying money for a quality experience.
Yeah, fair. Richard, anything you want to add at the end here before we move on?
No, well, I think it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because I would like to, being selfish about it, I'm not that precious about bricks and mortar stores beyond them being a place for me to go to buy hardware. I don't buy games in them anymore. I haven't for years. And I think it's the right thing for them to do as the market moves towards digital, for them to try and branch out into hardware and the accessories sort of markets. And we all want more accessories for our consoles nowadays, headsets, that sort of thing that you didn't need to buy in previous generations. There is more to sell to gamers now. And let the digital market thrive. If that kills the second-hand game market, that's more money in the pocket of publishers. And that goes some way to solving the problem for me. I really just want digital to grow and grow, and I think that's going to solve some of the problem.
I think the digital thing is interesting, but especially with what's happening in the US right now, with the possible
net neutrality,
removal of net neutrality, and the bandwidth throttling that could come with the more and more ISPs over there are actually instigating data caps, which means being able to be just saying, oh, you can only buy this game digitally. By the way, it's 100 gigs, which it might well be if it's a, say, enhanced game on the Xbox One X or PS4 Pro. I think a lot of gamers are looking at that and going, wow, I can't do that because I've got this. I know Comcast, even on their best service, has a 1 terabyte a month cap now. And net neutrality, if that goes away, then fuck, man. If that provider doesn't have a deal in place with Xbox, or maybe they've got a deal with PlayStation and therefore are therefore throttling Xbox, or vice versa, it could be a complete clusterfuck of a hellscape for online distribution right now over there in the US.
Whatever happens with that cannot last. That just kills the internet. They can't. The internet is bigger than one country, though, isn't it? So they do what they do in the US with their crazy president, and we do what we do with our crazy prime minister.
It's already a bad state out there anyway. You don't have competition. The whole sort of telecommunication industry out in the States is structured to ensure that there's only one available supplier in each area. It's fucking ridiculous. It's
absolutely.
This is
with all that shit in mind, what's the biggest market? The US. What will be driving the decisions made by EA and Activision the most? That market. So there you go. I mean, it's a really complicated mess, and it's far from the end of it. And there will be many developments of this into next year, and we will once again be talking about it, I'm certain. So moving on from one clusterfuck to another. Turns out Bungie and Destiny 2 were basically trying to fuck you in the ass by completely nerfing your experience gains if you were, say, using the PvE, the public event system to say farm some XP post game, post level cap to try and get your bright engrams. And the more you did it, the less XP you get. And then I guess you need to use your microtransactions and spend money to get your bright engrams. I think this was a little bit of a storm in a teacup when you look at the bigger microtransaction problems. However, it does indicate a real problem with transparency at Bungie. That their system was being hidden, that they were open to this being discovered, and then really heavy criticism around it. And the timing couldn't be worse, could it? The DLC is launching on Tuesday, which is like 2 days from now, and they've got this massive messaging issue that's come up just beforehand. So I kind of feel for them, but at the same time, they seem to have mismanaged Destiny 2 with its sort of post-release content so far and patches quite poorly. So this new DLC will be really interesting to see if they can sort of bring it back a little bit to that hobby grade shooter we kind of wanted it to be. Because I don't know about you guys, but I've not touched it. I booted it up last night just to see where things were at with the DLC in mind next week, but I've barely touched that game since the first sort of few weeks of release.
The 4K patch hits fairly soon, doesn't it? Does that
come with the DLC? Or DLC? Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so I'll jump back in for that. I was waiting for the 4K patch. But the microtransaction thing, I've got a bit of a different take on this. I mean, I'm more sympathetic to Bungie on this point because I don't see it necessarily as an underhand thing for them to have done. The system that they had in place was there to stop players from repetitively doing the same activity over and over again, but not so much prevent them from doing that, but encourage them to play the game properly. So it's not capping your XP on general activities. It's just that one specific thing where you can just go in of public events and just repeat and repeat and repeat.
Well,
if you want to go and do proper missions, then you still get plenty of XP. And if there weren't microtransactions involved, that would be a legitimate system. It's when you introduce prices for buying XP instead of actually earning it that this becomes a problem. If those payments weren't there, you would think this was a legitimate game design choice.
The problem was though that the experience that you're earning as reported by the in-game interface isn't the actual experience you are earning behind the scenes. If you use the API so the API is designed so that other websites and things can, you can access your character information and get stats and things like that. If you use the stats API, you can see the real numerical values of the XP you're earning, and they differ to what the user interface is reporting to you. So the user interface is designed to appear like you're earning XP at a constant rate, whereas the API reports the actual experience is going through some modifiers depending on how much time you're spending doing things. That's the real crux of the problem here.
They were lying to the player.
And the saddest thing is it doesn't affect the player like us ourselves, the casual player who may dip in and dip out of it from time to time. It's the actual real hardcore fan base that this sticks the knife into, the people that they depend on the most. And that's where I feel and there's no way this is accidental. This is very purposefully done.
They've not pretended otherwise, have they?
No. I think they've held their hands out and they've been caught.
This is interesting on another way for me as well, because they've mea culpa'd it and they've changed it, and it's almost like they're trying to make out it was a mistake or something. I don't know, but I think the other interesting aspect of this came out on Reddit, and Reddit is becoming increasingly powerful. I think buoyed by the impact they had on the Battlefront 2 front. Now, if you can get something to pop up and get big on Reddit, all of a sudden now developers are paying more and more attention to that site, more than they ever have before. And I think, because of the demise of other communities online, and that's becoming this incredibly influential place. And I think, perhaps if this had happened before Battlefront 2 exploded on Reddit and the issues with that, probably would have been a minor issue. But now every site is scouring Reddit for the next explosion. So as soon as something happens, it's on every mainstream outlet. And then all of a sudden, Bungie, over the Thanksgiving weekend, has to respond and get message out there to try and course correct as quickly as humanly possible. So, interesting times. That community, and that community isn't afraid to throw its weight around in general. So what will be the next big twist we get because of Reddit? Who knows? You know, it's gonna be something probably in the next week or two. But yeah, are you guys looking forward to the DLC? I mean, I bought the Fancy Pants edition of Destiny 2, so I have all the DLC ready to go. So once again, so I watched the trailer for it last night, the opening cutscene it's in the director, isn't it, on the game itself, and that looked cool. The Leah watched it, my wife, who's also into Destiny, she got really hyped for it, thought it looked really good. So I'm sure I'll put some time into it next week. But I don't know, that game.
I can't say I'm excited about it.
Doesn't grab me the same way the first game did. You know, didn't.
No.
Suck me back in.
Funny. So many people were all over it at launch, saying how brilliant it was in every respect this time, not just as a multiplayer online thing, but the single player stuff was great. And I kind of agreed with them. It was good fun for as long as it lasted, and I played it for a good few hours, I guess, over that first week, but not at all since. And I'm not excited about going back to it. That said,
yes. Do you know some of the,
when I went back to the Taken King in Destiny 1, even though I didn't review it that well, it was pretty cool.
Curious review from Richard. Yes, one of your famous ones. That, however, wasn't the year one content. That was that would have been House of Wolves and Dark Below, which was in the first year, and then Taken King was the second year. But no, I'm going to check out Trials of Osiris. He's an interesting character within the lore. There's some real deep stuff in the grimoires about him, for example, if you scoured them like I didn't. But yeah, I'll be curious anyway.
That'll be the grimoires from the first game, right?
Yeah, which I kind of miss, man.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do miss them. Actually, it's kind of one of the.
It's weird, but I didn't want them gone. I just wanted them accessible in the game. You know, that's all I wanted, really. But they just took it all out. And do you know, I was just going to say one of the weird things that I don't think they got the right idea of. Quite in Destiny 2, there's a more linear story, right? In Destiny 1, those story missions are designed to be replayable, whereas in Destiny 2, you've done that story stuff once. I have never been back to any of the story missions because they're buried as like a quest giver with Ikora Ray at the lower part of the tower, which you never fucking go to. So it's like, it's strange. So I barely remember the story because I didn't replay it. Whereas I remember Destiny's story because I did all the missions like 20,000 times. So I think there's some very strange decisions there with the design layout that only really have shown up months and months after launch now. This is where we're starting to see the problems with the game, because I reviewed it really positively, and I was like everybody else, very, very enthusiastic about that game at launch. But I'm definitely coming off of it now. Weird, eh?
No, not really.
I don't know. Is it symptomatic of so many other good games being out? There's so much to play at the moment.
Such a good year. We're going to have some meaty fucking discussions, I tell you, in January, boys. It's going to be good. So many good games. So many good games. So let's move on a little bit. And I just want to talk about something quick. Xbox Game Pass. Now, you guys are both sat on your Game Pass codes, I'm guessing, that came with your Scorpio, yeah? Your X. I redeemed mine last night. I thought, it's Christmas. We're not going to do a podcast for a month. I'm going to catch up on some games, play some silly stuff. And when you activate it, you're given the option to put on auto renew. And when you do, you get an extra month for free. So tip to everybody, if you have your code from buying your X edition, if you redeem it, hit auto renew, you get it. Basically, I've got it until the start of February for free, which is pretty cool.
And then you can cancel it without
paying?
You
can cancel it. Well, of course, you can't not. They can't not let you cancel it. But I'm, you know what? I'm looking at that library, and I thought, I'm not going to have many games here, am I? But I've downloaded about 20 games, Richard. 360 games and indie games and little games that I've never played. And I'm like, do you know what? There's stuff in here. There's stuff for everyone. Even though I've already got a huge amount of Xbox games, there are things that I've not played and would like to give a go. And that's some really good stuff in there. There's like Mad Max is in there, and Metal Gear Solid 5 is in there now. Halo's in there. Gears of War's in there. Some really big titles. And I just think it got a lot of talk around when it first got announced and when it first started. But they're putting in about 6 to 8 games every month, and it's already grown quite a bit. And I just think people
150 games now, I think.
Yeah, it's big.
That's not bad. But I look at it still and think, right, when am I going to play any of these? Because you're right. There's probably 15, 20 games that I could download tomorrow that I haven't tried yet. but I'm not going to try them because I've got other stuff.
Yeah, but Richard, you got a free code.
Well,
you might as well use it.
I've got more. I've got another 2 months free with my Xbox external hard drive that I bought. So I've got 3 months.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it'll be 4 months if you get a month free as well. I'll have 4 months free.
You can't. Sadly, you can't stack the codes. I don't believe. But
you not?
Yes. Once you use a free thing in
Yeah.
Game Pass, that's the only free thing you can use.
Well, it's not free, is it? I've paid for it.
So what is this thing you got with a hard drive? I'm confused.
It came with 2 codes for months. I guess they're consecutive months. You must be able to redeem them, otherwise they wouldn't give them to you, would they?
Did you get one of these Seagate drives or something then?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ballsy move buying a Seagate external drive, but good luck to you, sir. But did you get a good deal? Because it's the only way you get me to get a Seagate drive.
It says
okay,
Xbox
but you are a sucker for your branding, aren't you, my God? Drive failure rates be damned. This has Xbox embossed on it. I have to buy it.
Nah, that's fine.
Jesus Christ. It's fine. Tell me about it in a year, Rich. Tell me about it in a year. But yeah, I recommend you guys chuck your Game Pass codes in there. Have a look. That library is better than I even realized it was. It's really good. There's some really depth to it now. It's really interesting little games on there and big games.
You must own all the big. Though. You must own all the big ones.
I think so. I think I had all the big ones, but there's some indie stuff in there and like games that I'd say were on my periphery. Like I've seen and gone, oh, I'd play that, but I don't want to spend 15 quid on that. But there it is in Game Pass, and I've got it for free basically for the time being. But you know what? I'll probably this is how they get you. I'll probably just let it renew and just leave it. It's only $7.99. I'm not even going to notice that, am I? And it will just be like, there you go, another monthly sub to go to Netflix and Amazon and WWE and all the rest of them. Yeah. So whatevs. It's just another tenner coming out of my bank account, So yes, tech. I wanted us to talk a bit about tech. Have you guys got any tech recommendations for Christmas for people to consider? Because it's been a good year for tech.
Buy a Switch. That's going to be the tech toy for the year.
Damn right.
And, hopefully for game, there'll be stock available because if not, they're done.
How many games, like ballpark it, in your personal top 10s, don't tell me them, but tell me how many, do you think are coming from the Switch?
At least 2. No doubt.
There's some crazy good games coming out on that platform this year.
I think the top 2 are, I think it's going to be a very difficult debate to choose which specific Nintendo game is going to be Game of the Year. And that's that, I think.
I don't know. I think out of the 2, and everyone knows which 2 we're talking about, one is a clear front runner for me.
But this is why I'm interested to discuss it. I think they're both so different. They do the different things so well. It's going to make it incredibly difficult for me.
I can't wait. I can't wait for us to fight this out because I can't wait. I need to sit down. What I'm going to do this year, I think we were talking about it, Richard, weren't we, last night? Get on Wikipedia, look up the list of the releases for the year, go through the whole year because there'll be stuff you've forgotten, and try and hone your top 10 down. We'll have our personal top 10 list will be appearing in January. At the start of January will be my goal.
What I would like to do this year is try and get some idea beforehand before we start pulling a final list together of what we're each thinking, because I would like to be able to play the games that you thought were the best.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool, man. That's a good idea. I like that. And we can all try and at least dabble because there'll be deals and sales happening, so I'm sure we can work that out. Okay. Yeah. Good idea. A little bit behind the scenes there for the listeners. It's a crazy year. It just doesn't feel like it's. I think now it's stopped, maybe, but even now I've played some surprisingly good games in the last couple of weeks, actually. So shall we move on to games we've been playing, boys? As we don't seem to have a huge amount of tech recommendations other than Nintendo Switch. And if you're feeling really flush, I would recommend a 4K TV and an Xbox One X.
Yeah,
but that's just me. I'm really happy with it so far.
Lucid Sound again because they were nice and they gave you a free pair of headphones this year.
They did. The Lucid Sound LS30s I'm still using to stay, and you're liking your LS40s, aren't you?
Yeah, off the back of them sending you those, I bought the LS40s, and they are awesome.
And I believe I got an email from them saying that their new headsets were slightly delayed, and these are the ones that are going to be able to talk directly to the Xbox without a dongle.
Yeah.
They're coming out next year, early next year now.
35X, I think it was called. But yeah, that works just with Xbox, I think. So that's great if you're a single console owner. But they work without needing any cables at all. You need to plug a cable in for chat on the other ones.
You can do it with that. It doesn't even need that at all. It doesn't even need the chat cable.
Nope.
No, that's the whole point of it. It doesn't need any cable whatsoever, but it only works on Xbox. That's
cool, man. I might have to get some of them. That sounds sweet. I'm just looking. I picked up a tablet recently, cheap, but I don't think it's worth shouting about. It's fine. It's fine. Just looking around my room. Am I forgetting anything? What about you guys? Any other cool tech? Tech for Christmas?
I just have to echo. I think the Switch is it's fantastic as an individual console. It's a very social console as well. It's great with children. It's great with adults. It's so versatile for a single piece of tech. It's portable. It works as a home console. Nothing else, I think, can for the amount of money you get. Some people this will be all the money they can afford to spend, and that's a single solid purchase. And if I had to go through this year and pick only one of all the tech purchases I've made this year, that would be the one I would choose.
Yeah, I think I agree. If we were talking this year, if somebody said to me you can have your One X or your Switch, I never thought I'd say this, but I'd probably pick the Switch. It has crazily impressed me. And I never thought I'd love a Nintendo console like I love my SNES. But I think we're kind of there with the Switch. Really, like I might get a civil partnership sorted out. Just me and Switch live happily ever after. Sorry, wife. Yeah. Anyway, so let's move on. Let's talk about some of the games we have been playing and reviewing, of which I had way more than I expected. So my review for Star Wars Battlefront 2 went up. That is up. I don't know if you guys saw it or watched it, which you probably didn't because nobody cares.
I did.
You did.
Yeah, I was curious. I wanted to see your, what your final thoughts were for the review, so I did sit and watch it.
Because it was a review of two halves, wasn't it? I mean, it was like, oh man, I fucking love this. The campaign was amazing. The multiplayer is amazing. It's Star Wars come to life. It's fucking wet dream of 14-year-old Ben made real. And then they fuck it. I mean, there's no two ways about it. They fuck it with the worst progression system. The most so me and Rich playing last night, and we played for like 2 hours, me and him. And at the end, Rich goes, I don't really feel like I've progressed at all during this time.
I didn't achieve anything. It feels like you get some currency, and I didn't really get what the currency did because I tried to save it all up, thinking, well, what are they going to do with this? Because they've put everything on hiatus until they rework the whole thing. So I've not spent any money. And a couple of hours. And I thought, well, I suppose I've got a few credits towards a new hero to unlock, but not much apart from that. And
you level up. But what does that do?
Well, it doesn't really do anything apart from allow you to spend more of what you haven't got because you haven't earned enough of the currency that counts.
So yeah, I was working towards a higher level so that I could craft using the crafting parts, higher level cards so that I could level up my different units. And it's just, the design mentality is so clear in that game. EA said it's microtransactions, it's loot boxes, everything loot boxes. Yeah. So you got to work it all into loot boxes. Every form of progression can only be achieved using that system, and it's just so fucking dumb. But they're stuck with it now. It would require a massive overhaul of the UI, of the back end systems for them to pull out that microtransaction stuff and put in something more traditional.
Not to mention what it theoretically means for people who have progressed already. I mean, how do you rework people that have unlocked half of it already?
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, it is a funny old system.
However, am I looking forward to seeing what they could bring out for The Last Jedi? With, we've got playable Phasma hero, playable Finn hero. I think at least one map coming in the next few weeks or so. And there's also more single player stuff as well. They're doing a more single player campaign stuff, continuing Iden's story. Yep, all for free. Continuing Iden's story up past where it was at the end of the narrative, and then taking it more towards where we got that little epilogue at the Force Awakens era. So that's coming, and That's really cool, guys. That's free content, like loads of it. So that you know, everything about that is fantastic, and goddamn, it's fun to play, isn't it? I mean, it's so much fun. I just had such a good time last night, and it's always great fun, and it looks amazing. It sounds amazing. My God, it looks good on a 4K TV on your X. Just when those we were talking about when those like flashbang cluster grenades go off, Rich, and the light blooms, and it almost feel like it actually blinds you.
Yes,
you know, it is so intense, and it's just amazing. This was like my review, and yeah,
interesting trick, that, isn't it? For flashbangs to literally blind the player now in games.
HDR, those extra whites, the high nits of lighting. Yeah, I am
all about the nits, baby.
On Battlefront 2 today, I read the Edge magazine's review of it today. That was scathing. I've never seen them do. Normally, they're pretty. Don't really mention much microtransactions, loot crates, or anything like this. But this entire review went all out. I gave it 4 out of 10. Basically, and to sum it,
basis of the economy.
Yeah, basically, to sum it all up, it was a. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was literally it summarized on the fact that it was a game, you know, forged in the Frostbite engine, but ruined in a spreadsheet, basically, which I thought summed it up perfectly. This was a game that everyone on the shop floor did what they needed to, but it was ruined by the management above. And
I mean, Joe, you tell me, you watched my review. I mean, I came at it as a Star Wars fan perspective, and it's that's what I am. So I'm not going to pretend to be anything other than that. And it would have probably been a really easy 5 if it had like traditional leveling and non-egregious microtransactions. It would have been a 5. I really enjoyed that campaign. I really enjoyed the multiplayer. I think it's a beautifully crafted experience. Like the people at DICE and Motive and Criterion outdid themselves, like as developers. And I think the slight disparity in scores going lower than mine, for example, will come from people that are maybe not as invested in the Star Wars universe as I am. But yeah, it pulls it down a long way. You know, and it's just
I would counter it. I would say that I wouldn't necessarily say that the reviews that are pulling it that low are because they're not big Star Wars fans. I think some of them might be because they are. And I agree with you. I think graphically, I think the game is incredible. The single player campaign, on having sat on it, finished it for a week and things, I think I enjoyed it when I first played through, but on reflection, I think there are some weaknesses in it. It could certainly do with some improvements.
It's very by the numbers. I played through a few more of those missions again today, and I felt the same the first time through, but on second sitting, it doesn't stand up that well in gameplay terms. If it wasn't Star Wars, I think it would be more critical. Yeah,
and then there's the progression system in the multiplayer. I mean, I saw there's a star card, for example, to improve your aim assist, which, you know, how can such a thing even exist in a game? That feels so awfully designed around the economy and trying to extract money from people, as opposed to trying. It's that I feel that EA have truly done a real number on this.
Aim assist. You can't get more tied into game ability than that, can you? I mean, that is just shameless. Pay to win.
That's beyond. You know, that's literally. Don't worry about programming the cheats anymore. We've got them in the game. You can buy them.
Well, it's just like last night when we were playing. I certainly took advantage of my super enhanced thermal detonators, for example, Richard. You know, like, you know, the difference was apparent when you've got those epic thermal detonators on your assault class, you know, which have got a larger blast radius and they recharge quicker. You know, you're a far more effective killing machine than you would be with it. Very, very obvious. And it just won't be in my top 10 for the year, sadly. Tell you that, but wish it could have been. I'm gonna do another one because I've got a few and I want to bang this one up super quick. I reviewed Lego Marvel Superheroes 2. It's I don't know. Is my audio all right for you, Richard?
Yeah.
Cool. Just Joel then. He sucks.
Well, no, you have. It's fine now. You did go a bit fuzzy.
Did I?
Yeah.
A bit fuzzy. Maybe it's because I moved away from the mic a little bit. I'll come back closer. But yeah, I reviewed Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, and it's another Lego game.
Oh.
Any questions?
Games? I'm not familiar with those.
Oh, let me tell you how it works, Richard. You run around as a Lego person, and you break everything you can, and you sometimes do really simple puzzles, and you sometimes do really easy combat, and it looks generally nice, and it sounds generally nice, and in this one, it was kind of fun because it was deeply nerdy comic book references and not film stuff from the Marvel Universe. So that was the cool bit. And all I could think of while I was playing it was, damn, some of this is really deep and nerdy and funny and obscure. Wouldn't it be good if this was in any other game except a Lego one?
Yeah. Wrong audience.
I mean, it's fine, but I think it's my third Lego game this year. Oh no, there was 3 Lego games and you did one of them, didn't you? And this is my second in a very short span of time.
Have I done Lego?
And
I did Lego
Didn't you do
Worlds.
Lego Worlds?
Yeah,
yeah,
I did.
that was. Yeah, I somehow convinced you to do that. I'm not sure how.
Well, I think that was a proper
it's
Lego game, so I didn't mind so much that. Lego is not about smashing stuff up. Lego is the opposite of smashing things up. So I didn't mind Lego Worlds so much.
This is proper Lego game. What are you talking about? Don't belittle my time with Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, Richard.
I will belittle it.
I tell you now, it was perfectly. It was perfectly suitable.
Suitable?
Yes.
For the bin?
Suitable. For people that like Lego games. I have nothing else to add. Right.
That's the most hack journalistic line ever. If you like this sort of thing, you might like it.
But at this point, what more do you want from somebody talking about a Lego game? I mean, you either like them or you don't. And if by God chance you've not played one, then one is fine. Try it if you like Marvel stuff, I guess.
I'm just soaking up that enthusiasm. Keep it flowing, Ben. Come on.
It's solid.
Joel, what's next?
Joel, I'm going to throw to Joel on Worms because it's actually a game I reviewed on Xbox. I believe when it first came out, and he reviewed it on the Switch.
So this is going to echo what you literally just said. It's really hard to, I guess, say if you're not familiar with Worms, then I'm not sure I can help you. It's everyone should by now really have an inkling about what Worms games are. They're good fun, they're social, they're strategical, there's skills, there's some good skills-based things in there with some of the weapons as well. They're generally really good, enjoyable games. I think it's this was on the Switch, and I think it's found a really good home here. I think it really suits the Switch well. I was playing this whilst my wife was in labour, whilst we were at the hospital. In the early stages of labour, might I just add there, rather than as we're getting near crunch point. So it really works well with that dip in, dip out. Dip in, dip out gameplay. This one adds vehicles for the first time. So there are sort of tanks and helicopters that you can get your worms to jump into, and you can move around the map and blow stuff up. But overall, the game works the same. They've added a crafting mechanic, which it felt that the only reason it existed was so that they could perhaps restrict the weapons that you would restrict access or supply of the weapons that you would normally have, and instead depend on you destroying the current, destroying certain weapons to get access to other ones and craft them. So I felt it added something to the game. I didn't really feel that was necessary, though. I didn't find myself using it that much. On the Switch itself, the game performed fine. It looked beautiful, hand-drawn. Some of the UI elements have suffered, I think, because it has come from a console port. So some of the text hasn't been scaled up properly for the smaller screen. They could have done with rejiggering some of the menus. For example, the weapon selection menu, crafting menu are very small, which they would have benefited much more from sort of a full screen approach. But overall, the game was I enjoyed it. I still play it every now and again. It's a Worms game. It's well done. They've tried to add some new bits on there, but at its core, it's got everything that the original still had. It's good fun.
I just looked it up. I was a little bit concerned, but no, thankfully we both gave it the same score, 4 out of 5.
Yeah, it's a good Worms game.
It is a good Worms game. But I can't think of many times I've played a Worms game and gone, oh man, that was a bad Worms game. Because generally they don't come out so close together that you're sick of them, like the Lego games do. And they pace their releases out quite nicely, one every like couple of years, 3 years, something like that. And they usually add something new. In this case, we've got like vehicles and stuff like that, which felt like a freshened it up. And the crafting, like you said, and I agree with you on the crafting, it felt pretty unnecessary. But you know, at its core, tactical turn-based combat with fully destructible environment in a 2D humorous setting. You cannot beat that Worms formula, man. But like, I only have to ask you though. I mean, because you play on the Switch, I'm guessing you didn't have a couch adversarial moment with it. But nothing beats sitting down with 3 of your mates and playing some Worms like when you were 10.
No, it's brilliant.
That is so much fun.
It supports pass and play. You can use a couple of you can use a couple of Joy-Cons to play multiplayer. You can also play online. They've really thought that side of it out. Like I say, it works really well on the Switch from those.
Any touch screen interface?
You know, I didn't actually try. Am I the only one who rarely ever tries to actually prod my Switch?
I was going to say, right, one of the things with the Switch is you forget it's touchscreen half the time, don't you? And it's like one of the games that works, I remember playing and finding out it was touchscreen was like revelatory, was Ironcast. And it's like, oh, fucking hell, it's a match for it. It's fully touchscreen enabled, everything, the whole interface is touchscreen. And I thought, maybe they've done something with Worms, perhaps. Like, that would be really cool because they don't advertise that it's touchscreen. They don't really, when the games come out, they don't really say, it's like touchscreen enabled, because I guess they want you to not think of it like a mobile device, that they want you to think of it as a console device. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of the games do have touch features, especially the indie ones and the littler ones. But no, I think that's one of the cooler. The fucking Switch, man, so good. So good.
It would be a struggle if it did, I think, because as I alluded to earlier, some of the UI elements are so small. The weapon selection thing appears literally in possibly about 20% of the screen in the bottom right-hand side when you bring it up, and like, you know, seeing what you're trying to pick is hard enough. Like, trying to actually get your finger on the exact thing would be even, even more difficult. So, yeah.
I don't want to prod the fucking worm. Give me the shotgun. I can see it now. Yeah, much frustration. But yeah, Worms game, good game.
Yeah, it's good.
Definitely, no doubt. All right, I'm gonna talk about one now where I didn't realize how happy I would be to return to this universe. Now, guys, you all watched Battlestar Galactica when it was on TV?
Yeah.
Big fans. I mean, back then there wasn't so many options for good sci-fi, were there? I mean, that was quite a big deal.
Are you talking first time round?
No. Well, I watched that in reruns. I might add. I wasn't that old, but no, I'm talking about the remake, the modern remake.
Yeah.
Good stuff, eh?
Yeah, I did.
Really good.
And so I think I'm slightly less cool than most people who watched that and thought the end was good as well. Most people hate that, I think, but good show.
The problem with that show is that it was incredibly serialized in its story, and yet they hadn't planned out the plot ahead of time. So they were writing it on an episode-to-episode basis, and that showed by the time they got to the end. Some of that final season stuff with the final 5 and then how it actually ended just felt like, fuck, we're in a corner. What do we do to write ourselves out of it? And yeah, I think that's quite apparent. But at the same time, dude, some of the best music in a TV show, amazing space combat, cool as fuck robot dudes, just really... And those first 2 seasons are brilliant, just brilliant, especially that first season. Like some of those episodes, like what was it, 33, where they had to jump every 33 minutes, or the silence would find them. Do you remember that? That was like the first episode after the pilot. So impressive, so impressive. And Edward James Olmos is still my hero. Absolutely fantastic performance. So after that little bit of reminiscence, who knew that, clamoring for a Battlestar Galactica game, and there is one on the near horizon. It comes out this week. It's called Battlestar Galactica Deadlock, and it's been out on PC for a while, and it's coming from a developer. I think they're a small European sort of thing called Slytherin, I think, or something like that. Slithery or Slithery. I probably should look that up before talking about it, but I didn't. So let's just roll with it. It'll be in my review next week. Don't worry about it. But let me just say, it's based, and this is a great reason to go and watch this review again, guys. It uses the same engine as Starhammer: The Vanguard Prophecy, which Cameron reviewed many moons ago on October the 1st, 2016. And the reason I recommend that review is that Cameron, this is the one where he tried to do like a Star Trek pastiche, doing his own special effects, camera angles, and playing multiple characters.
That was great.
It is the mentalist thing we possibly have on our YouTube channel, and well worth checking out just for the intro, just for that bit of him doing that. But basically, it's basically that game reskinned to a degree, but with a extra sort of meta strategy layer on top. And what I mean by this is, so this game is sort of like a turn-based strategy game. You have a star field, you have your various ships, and when the enemies show up, they are dataless contacts, just like in the TV show, and it's so much fun. But anyway, and it, they've even done like a Bear McCreary sort of sound-alike music score, which is like not quite as good as the TV show, but reminiscent of it, which is nice. So you have the ships, you have your Vipers, you have your various things they've sort of put in there to fill out the fleet a bit, but obviously your Battlestar's in there. And the setting here we have is the first Cylon War. So rather than I believe the invasion that we get in the TV show is the second Cylon War, or maybe it's the third. I can't remember. It's the one before we're setting this. And yeah, so you're defending the 12 colonies from the Cylon attacks, and you are like forming throughout this game the first colonial fleet, because you're trying to bring together the disparate colonies of man, and there's some politics in there, and there's some diplomacy in there, and you've got to try and build the fleet and move it strategically around this meta layer of, around the different colonies to defend the Cylons. And you end up having multiple fleets and everything as well. And then when you actually play this combat, you kind of, it's really hard to describe, but it'll be easier if you watch the Starhammer video, or my review, which will be a video as well. But you kind of position the fleet, you position your ships before you hit play, and then the action then plays out with your orders that have been given in real time. So I think Joel would be interested in this, because it's almost like a board game. It plays a lot like a video
of it as we speak, and yes, yeah. It looks very good.
Yeah, and it's incredibly deep in strategy. It's a full 3D plane, so you're not just on a 2D plane. You've got 3D environments. You've got different advantages to being above the enemy or below the enemy in different situations. So like I said, you've got various ships maneuvering all around this space at different times. You've got different orders to give them. You know those cool bits in the TV show, Richard, where they'd unleash like salvos of missiles at each other.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that bit? And they'd all fly out.
Yeah,
you can do that, and it looks amazing. And they stay like that. It takes multiple turns sometimes for the missiles to cross the vast gaps of space before they impact on the Cylon vessels. And you're repairing stuff, and you're dealing with things like hacking attempts, where the Cylons can try and hack your ships to disable subsystems or even take control of the vessel themselves, which was obviously a big part of the TV show, if you remember, because the Galactica was so old school, it wasn't networked. So that was kind of like
it was all clockwork.
But there's an interesting thing that actually they've done with the game. They set up right at the very beginning of the game that the Galactica has actually disappeared. They don't know where the Galactica has gone, which is why I think it's not going to be in the game, because they obviously wanted to avoid. I think they've got some interesting licensing stuff going on here. They can't have people from the TV show, I don't think, in the game. But for all intents and purposes, it feels totally legit. It feels very much a part of the Battlestar universe. Seeing the big fleet actions you get in this game, launching squadrons of Vipers to intercept Cylon raiders, sending out your scouts, sending out like different types of vessels for different. They've all got different movement radiances. They've got different types of weapons that you can upgrade on the sides of the ships. You've got broadsides, you've got interceptor weaponry, you've got flak cannons, it's got masses of depth. And if you're in the mood for sci-fi nerding it out hard, and I'm talking these single fights can take hours. You'll be in this one area, before you even get back to that meta level. And it's a bit of a shoehorned onto the console situation. This is clearly would be most at home on PC, but the controls aren't terrible. Once you get your hang around the actual kind of layout and how things work, it will take a bit of practice. There's a lot of stuff that you'd use on the D-pad that you would have thought would have been analog stick controls and stuff like that. But once you get your head around things, it becomes sort of second nature, and it's almost like part of the fun, learning how to move these capital ships around this space, how to best take advantage of the 3D environments, you know, how to use covers behind planets and moons and space stations and stuff like that. Yeah, man, I'm really enjoying my time with this game. It's not going to be for everyone. It's not an arcadey shooter. It's not elite. It's more like a board game made manifest on your Xbox. But if you're a fan of the Battlestar universe, this is so going to be worth checking out. Like it's super cool. Yeah, if you proper nerdy shit, but really good fun. Any questions?
Doesn't sound like it's my bag at all, apart from being Battlestar. But yeah.
Oh mate, you say that, but when you launch your first missile salvos, like, oh, it feels good. Feels like it's
how are the controls? So watching the video, it looks like a mouse and keyboard would be, well, a mouse would be perfect for it. How is it on a console?
I kind of just said, yeah. I mean, if I was gonna really criticize anything, I save it for the review and all that. But the controls are the biggest problem with this game. They've made it work, but it doesn't feel like it's happy doing it. I mean, like it would make so much more sense to just click a ship. You kind of have like, then it's like silhouette about where you want to move it, and then just click where you want it to go. With this, you're kind of like cycling through the ships, and then you use the D-pad to tell, you know, where you want the ship to go using its silhouette, and because the analog sticks controlling the camera, and then you've got a cycle, and then you hit a button to bring up a sub menu, a radial menu, you know, because the only way to make an RTS or a turn-based game of any kind seemingly work on a console is radial menus up the arsehole. So you just have radial menus upon radial menus, you know, and you know, but because it's turn-based, you can take as much time as you need, you know what I mean? And then you hit play, and then the action unfolds like a 10-second clip from the TV show. And you know what's really cool, actually? When you finish an engagement, you can watch the replay of the whole thing with no UI, and it's just like watching one of the battle scenes out of the TV show. And then it's like, oh wow, all that I just spent an hour doing that, but it's actually only like, I don't know, 2.5 minutes of space combat. And you're like, and then you watch it all back, and it just looks amazing. You've got capital ships moving into position, intercepting other ships, rocket salvos going off, anti-aircraft stuff, Vipers flying across space to intercept, and it looks like the TV show. And it's like, wow, I did that. I win. I'm awesome.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really, really cool. There's nothing else like it except Starhammer, which is kind of what it is. On the Xbox, nothing else at all. Reason it's worth checking out. Richard, I know it's not a review, but I'm really curious. How's Rocket League on Switch, man?
Mate, I didn't think it'd work, but it bloody well does. It's good. It's a bit of a funny one because you load it up and you think, this looks exactly the same as the one I've played on PlayStation and Xbox. And you think that's good, but all the UI is designed for big TVs. So it's a bit, it's difficult to adjust to, even with good eyes like mine. It's a bit tricky to read what's going on. But if you've played Rocket League before, you don't really need to read it. You know where everything is. And it is Rocket League. It works exactly the same as you'd expect it to. And it's brilliant. I've actually played it on the toilet and all around the house. And just being able to drop into online games in a pick up and play game like Rocket League. Because it kind of is that. It's that sort of multiplayer experience where if you've got a spare 10 minutes, you can just chuck the console on and just have a quick go. It's even easier to do that now on Switch because you can just do it wherever. It's totally suited to the platform, and it does everything that you would want it to do. I didn't find there was any performance issues. It looks little bit pixely, but it's fine. In terms of smoothness, it just works, and I've enjoyed every minute of it so far. Not sure how the multi-platform stuff works because I think it does tie into Xbox Live and PC platforms.
I believe so, yeah.
I've not quite worked out how you tell or what the sort of adoption rate is of Switch players versus everyone else. But I suppose that's a good thing if you don't know. You know, you don't have to worry about it. It just is Rocket League. So if you've played it before and you want to play more of it on the go, pick it up. The only downside is it's got the Switch premium price, isn't it? So it's like 15 quid. I think you can get it for probably half that on other platforms. But
I bet it's Rocket League, man. That's worth it.
It is Rocket League. It is worth it. So yeah, definitely recommend that.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing is you can obviously play against those player bases. But you know what me and you discovered is you can't party up. Remember?
No.
Which is a real shame that you can't party up with PC players and Xbox players, because if you could do that, if you can merge your friends list, how cool would that be? But I understand why you can't. But still a shame. But it's good that, you know, the fact that it works with us, because it's like the Switch gamers don't have to worry about having a tiny player base.
Yeah, exactly.
So they've got a huge player base already established for them to just jump straight into. Do you still suck, Richard, by the way?
Wow.
Just saying.
I think that's unfair, because there have been moments.
Really? Played a lot of games with Richard.
I've played quite a lot of games with you, and there have been moments of absolute glory on my part. I think you'll agree.
That's why Rocket League's so amazing, though, isn't it?
It is hit and miss.
Everybody gets moments of absolute fucking glory. Like there'll be that time when you hit the fucking ball at the other end of the pitch, and it somehow ricochets around the walls and goes in the goal, and it's like, fuck yeah! I've basically been banned playing it in my living room, because I get so, you know, Richard, you've been there when I've been shouting, and I get in so much trouble because the wife does not appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you make me want to play Rocket League now. I feel like I just want to say see you later, guys, and jump straight on the Xbox and play it. Like that's such a good game. Such a good game. Joel, do you play, Joel?
Yeah, I've played Rocket League.
We've all played together.
You stopped playing with me because I was too good.
That was it. Yes, you're even worse than Richard. Thank you for reminding me. Yes.
Ooh, I'm not sure I'm that bad.
I mean, I have scored just as many own goals as you guys. Don't worry. It happens. But yeah, good to hear that it works as well as I was hoping. I think I'll have to pick that up. I'm gonna have to do that, aren't I? Right. I'm gonna tick off the last review on my list. Hand of Fate 2. This sort of quietly came out on PS4 and PC a few weeks ago, or maybe a bit less than that, actually, really recently. The Xbox version, for whatever reason, was a little bit delayed. I kind of forgot that I'd spoken to the developer to get hold of some code on this, and it arrived, and I was like, oh, brilliant, really look forward to this. And it didn't disappoint, guys. Did you guys both play Hand of Fate? Because I know it was given away as a Games with Gold title. Did you both at least dabble? Briefly?
I played a little bit of that. I enjoyed it for what it was. I didn't put too much time into it, but yeah, I think for what they were doing, it worked well.
It's a curious game, isn't it? It's quite hard to describe. So it's got roguelike elements. It's an action RPG, but it's also a deck builder. Yeah. So you have these cards, and the cards then get laid out by the dealer. And the dealer is kind of this omnipresent, godlike figure who's quite sarcastic and is quite dark and brooding. And is actually a little bit reminiscent of the narrator from Bastion, in his sort of prescience of being able to sort of explain what's happening to you as it happens and things like that. Though I will say the game feels more structured than Bastion did, so it doesn't feel quite as organic in its delivery. But he's very full of character and just quite ominous and fun to sort of listen to the stuff he comes out with. And so basically he deals the cards that you have from your deck out onto the table, and then that's your dungeon. So you then choose which cards you move to, and they can be things, anything from, oh, you've just got to the local tavern, would you like to spend some gold on a new axe, to a combat encounter with some random bandits, to a story element with a sort of multiple choice decision branching thing, like do you want to try and rescue the maiden in distress, or do you want to ignore her, or do you want to maybe kill her yourself and take all the money, things like that. And it's so we've got this kind of quite low fantasy setting, which is all grim and weird and twisted in places. And then the new Hand of Fate 2 has this new sort of overworld map, so you can select different themed encounters, so it's not as linear as the first game. And in addition to that, we've got more sort of on the actual deck games themselves. So not every mini game now sucks you into a card. You have sort of dice roll games and stuff like that can be played directly onto the table itself. But the main way you interact with this game is through combat, other than just picking, where you're going to go and what choices you're going to make. And the combat looks better than ever. It looks much better than the first game. It looks really sharp on the new Unreal Engine and in 4K. It's an enhanced title on the X, and it shows. It's got some really nice visual effects. And I think the combat's been fleshed out a bit as well. So it's kind of like a Batman Arkham sort of light sort of combat. So you've got parries and deflections and attacks and that sort of stuff. You know, we've seen it all before in Batman. But I think what they've done with this is, in this one, they've added a lot more enemy variety, a lot more different types of enemies. So you have to think about how you're going to handle them. There'll be heavy attacks, range attacks, guys that come in fast, guys that use magic, stuff like that. And the other addition in this version compared to the first one is companions, which is nice. So your character now is customizable. You can be a man or a woman, have various hairstyles and colored clothing and stuff like that. Unlike the first game, which was a set male character, which is a nice change. And then you have various companions you get through beating these kind of quests you go on. You can get various different types of support characters. So it can be anything from mages to other warriors and rogues and stuff like that. And you pick one of those before you go into any one of these sort of runs. And each run is a permadeath. So if you die anywhere in that run, you fail and you have to start again. So there's your roguelike element. And also, because it's card-based, the gear you find in each run, depending on what cards you've got in your deck, will dictate what kind of gear you may get in that run. But that gear isn't permanent. So the gear you only get in that run stays with you for the run. And then, you go on another run, you try a different quest, see what happens. So each quest, usually that you win, will give you more cards to choose from, so you can customize your deck further. So there's loads going on in this game. There's systems upon systems. And I actually had quite a lot of trouble doing this review because there's so much going on in what is actually sort of given to you in a fairly simplistic, easy to understand manner. But because there's so many systems, there's so many intricacies. It's quite an ambitious game. And I love how it looks and how it plays. And I'm not a big kind of card gamer. I'm not into that stuff at all, really. But there's something about this, and the only other one I love is Gwent, but this isn't like Gwent, so that's irrelevant. But, I really dig Hand of Fate 2. It's got a really cool art style. I really love the audio presentation. I love the narrator. He absolutely draws you into the world in a fantastic way and really gives you a personal kind of investment to what you're doing. And I just, it really works. Really, really works.
Seems like one of those funny genre crossover things. Like
you
mentioned Ironcast, that had a similar vibe to me. It's not the same sort of game, but do you know what I mean? It has a simple premise. It looks like a simple match 3 puzzle game, and then you find all these other layers and different systems underneath, and it somehow works when it really shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, Ironcast is a match of matching 3 combined with like a roguelike strategic overmap combined with a steampunk kind of adventure game. There's some interesting combinations. Another great mashup I reviewed recently was Vostok Inc., which is an idle clicker combined with a twin stick shooter, which again, you wouldn't think it would work, but it's just brilliant. Like really, really, really gels. A Hand of Fate. So you've got this basically what would be like a deck-based game, which you would just be, putting out the cards and stuff and then rolling dice to make decisions. Instead, when it comes to combat, you actually go in and do it. Kind of visually reminded me of the Fable world. The art style is quite Fable-esque. And then you have this kind of Batman style, counter-based, parry-based, block-based combat system, which can be really challenging. Some of the encounters are very, very hard, and you have to rethink strategically about how to deal with the enemies that you're facing. And like I said, it looks better and performs better than the first game did as well. So it just works in that setting really, really well. I think one thing, at least I didn't come up against any of them, but it's hard to say because there's so many cards. But there were like puzzle. Do you remember the puzzly bits in the first game where you'd be like, instead of 3D combat, you'd have like 3D puzzling instead. Like there'll be traps you have to avoid and stuff like that.
I don't know if I came up against that. No, I don't recall that.
Well, that doesn't seem to be in the sequel, thankfully, because they were frustrating, and because their controls weren't precise enough, they were often the areas in which you'd fall down and struggle the most. Right. So that's no longer there, from what I can tell. But I might be wrong. I might just not have encountered them myself. But no, I think it's a really cool game, man. Definitely worth checking out. Any other questions before we move along? Nothing from the peanut gallery today. Okay. Richard, you've been dabbling, I can see, in your kind of the Xbox One X enhanced territory with a few games: Forza 7, Recore, and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. So what's your takeaway from these 3?
There's something wrong with me. There's really something wrong with me. I bought a bunch of new games. You haven't mentioned the Dishonored Complete Edition, which I bought as well. Yeah. So there's 3 games in that I've not been playing.
Black Friday sale was good for you, huh?
It was pretty good. Well, all bad, depending on
increasing that backlog. Yeah.
I've got a bunch of stuff to play through, and I ended up playing Recore for the best part of a week, which I finished a year ago. So
I'm just going to look up your review to remind me of what you scored it, to make me feel even more weirded out by the fact that you have playing that instead of better games. I think you only gave it a 3, didn't you? Did you only give it a 3?
Yeah, but I was being
generous.
I think personally, no, I liked it more than that score suggests. I was trying to be objective about it.
I'll screw that,
because I think I appreciate that I like this more than most other people listening would, because it does feel really old and hackneyed and underproduced, and there's loads of things wrong with it. I get it, but it's still fun. And they added a bunch more content since I finished it. So the Definitive Edition has got a whole new area. It's added stuff to the old areas. It's basically now a almost finished game. It wasn't before. So I thought I'd just go back and finish it off. But it's been updated for 4K. It's got HDR stuff. It's just all right. I mean,
we were talking about this yesterday, and you said at one point there was HDR lighting in an open environment which was so bright you couldn't see where you had to go.
Yeah. There's bits in the dark dungeons are pretty cool because it's got all lava running through them and lots of glowing neon stuff. And that looks nice in HDR, but there are bits where you just think they've just chucked this in and not actually tested whether it's working or not. There's this one map where the sky is so bright that the bloom coming off it, you know, it's supposed to just tinge the edge of the horizon and make it look as if it's, glowing. It does more than that. It looks like I've got some sort of eye condition because the land just disappears to the point where you can kind of see what's at your feet, but everything else is just shrouded in whiteness to the point that where it must be bad for your eyes to look at it. So I'm not sure how this got through testing or whether it's just a bug or something, but yeah, has problems still.
Not magically fixed then with better lighting. It didn't improve the whole game. It's a shame. No. What about the others? Forza, Call of Duty?
Forza, I don't know. I think Forza 7 is a bit of Emperor's New Clothes because everyone's saying this is the best looking thing on the X. Really isn't. It's just okay, I think. I think it's a bit too clinical to say it's the best looking game. It does look good. Of course it does. But it's still a clinical racer. Just too clean and doesn't really shout out at me. Far more impressive was last year's Call of Duty, which I didn't get around to playing last year. Excuse me, Windy Pops. But I bought it in the Black Friday sale and flipping heck, it's good on the X. I don't know if you've tried it yet, but it looks well nice.
I've only loaded it up. I haven't properly played it. No.
Really good.
That was a great game, man. I hope you enjoy it. Get that campaign. Fantastic.
Oh, it's just such a spectacle. Call of Duty games always are, but when you've got new tech to show off, it's just the best thing. They've really pulled it out the bag on the update for this because all the particle effects when you're walking around the ship and there's like steam coming out of vents and there's fire and all that stuff that you think, yeah, that would look amazing in 4K. Really, really does on the X. It's just out of this world. And I think last time we spoke, I talked about Quantum Break being the best thing I'd seen on the X so far. This is probably like there's moments of this where you think, Christ, this is the thing to beat now.
Wow. Last year's game. It's impressive. I mean, I just preferred the visual treatment of Infinite Warfare over WW2 anyway. Just last year, I think it was just better game from what I've played. But WW2 is fine, but it doesn't have the scope of Infinite Warfare because it can't.
Well, no, it's set within its world.
So,
I mean, Infinite Warfare, that has
it's set within its solar system.
Yeah.
So, not its world. Yeah, it's a gloriously fucking camp sci-fi romp. Infinite Warfare. So you're gonna have a good time beating that. Definitely. Joel, I'm curious about something on your list. Really curious because what I've seen so far makes it look like fucking bobbins. and that is Doom VFR.
Yeah, I thought you might be interested to hear about this. So, all right, so I'm going to go straight into it. It's good. It's
it's good.
As far as the shooting experience, I think this is the best shooting experience I've had in PSVR. Now, I didn't get very far with Farpoint. The reason I didn't get very far with Farpoint is because I haven't got the aim controller. They still do not sell the aim controller as a separate accessory. I am not buying the game again just to get a controller. They can go screw themselves. So Farpoint itself is very much designed around that controller. I didn't enjoy it with the DualShock, and I've stopped playing it until such a point as I can pick up that accessory separately. Doom, however, supports the aim controller, it supports move controllers, and it supports the DualShock. I've been playing with the move controllers, and yeah, I'm not that familiar with the move controllers. I haven't used them or played with them that much. There are some games that require them, some games that don't, and Doom uses a lot of the buttons on both controllers, so the controls are certainly proving to be an interesting and challenging learning curve, but the game itself is I'm beginning to get the mastery, and it's brilliant. I am really enjoying. So you have the common set of Doom enemies that are coming at you. You can so movement is based around teleporting, and you've got one button that kind of rotates you 1080 degrees, and there are other buttons to skip left and right and things. So on the one hand, you're sort of teleporting yourself. Now, when you activate the teleport, you sort of enter a time dilation mode. So you've got a few seconds to determine where you want to teleport to. So you can kind of plan out your actions. And then obviously you've got your shotgun. You've got all the fucking Doom guns you have in your second, at your disposal. It's brilliant. You literally just teleport in front of something and just fucking blow it to pieces with the shotgun. And it just falls apart in front of you. And then you just pick the next victim, or get the machine gun out, you shoot him from range. And can you remember you have the kind of execution mode to recover your health and your get armor shards back in Doom? So that's still in play, but how it works is once you get somebody so that they're glowing white and blue, you teleport onto them to literally just cause them to blow up, revealing all the armor.
You're telefragging them, mate.
Yeah, basically. Sweet. And yeah, movement is a little I'm struggling a little bit positionally because you're teleporting, and sometimes you don't quite want to turn 180. You want to turn, so I'm turning around in the room trying to get myself right, and I think that's more me just trying to adapt to it. I think there's a bit of a learning curve with the controls for this, but once you get used to once you've got it, once it clicks, this game is just going to be entertainingly fun. You're just going to be skipping between Doom enemies, shooting the crap out of them, and it's all set on the same UAC base. I've been to places that was in Doom, the 2016 PC title. Some of the same environments, some of the same rooms. Recognize the locations. You've got all the enemies there, and it works the same. You have a small objective. You have to go collect something. You then get these sort of a small arena battles with huge spawning enemies as the demons sort of invade. You have to just stay alive, jump around, get the health packs, just constantly be in their face, taking them out, running away, dodging and things.
Oh god, that sounds awful.
It hasn't made me motion sick at all. It hasn't made me motion sick at all. I think
it made Richard motion sick because
it would. Everything you're saying everything you say makes me think VFR must stand for vomiting from Richard.
Possibly. But then came the greatest moment, literally dual wielding. Like a grenade launcher in my left hand, my choice of machine gun, shotgun, plasma rifle, rocket launcher in my right, and you're just like, whilst all still teleport. So can you remember those enemies that had the shields, the blue kind of electric shields, and you had to get behind them to shoot them? This is just brilliant. You just let him walk up to you. You literally teleport right behind him, instantly press the turn 180 button with the super shotgun, boom, in their back, and they just blow up right in front of you. This is.
Sounds awesome.
It's fun. I'm loving it. I'm playing it on easy mode as well, and it's still hard. So I have no idea. It's got like 5 difficulty levels. I have no idea once you unlock Nightmare. This must be, once you perfect the controls, this must just be like some sort of euphoric combat state of just pure joy. Yeah, it's really good so far. The game's short. It's of a similar length to Arkham VR is the best way to think of it. It's probably a 2-hour-long experience. It's priced accordingly. I got the game for, I think, £10 in the end, because Amazon sent me, first of all, Amazon posted me the game, so I got that on Friday. And then they sent me an apologetic email about how they had run out of stock and I wouldn't be getting it. And here's a £2 discount code for the game that I'm holding in my hand. So thank you, Amazon, for your cock up there. But yeah, seriously, I know how much you love Doom, Ben.
Yeah, you are making me think about a PSVR more seriously than I've ever thought about a PSVR right now, sir.
You should.
Which my wife will not be happy to hear about.
I don't know if it's a good enough. There are other good experiences on the PSVR, and if you're interested more than just this one, it's certainly worth a purchase. But if you just want to try this out, you should just come over and give it a go. Because I think,
yes, that is an option. Yes,
yeah, I think you would absolutely love it. That
does sound fucking cool. That does sound fucking cool.
It looks very nice as well.
Talking about cool, and Richard, you were mentioning this earlier. A list of games that maybe try and play for consideration for Game of the Year. I am playing Nier Automata. And many people have talked about this as one of the best this year. And I saw a video of it and I saw some clips. I was like, this looks like pretty standard action stuff. And yeah, it's platinum, so it feels good. It moves good. Visuals are okay and stuff. And oh, I know. Oh, I can't talk to you about any of this. Really, there's some shit in this game to do with the story and the narratives and the characters that, oh boy, this is some pretty clever, interesting, compelling sci-fi, and also very, very, very good combat. The combat in this game is so varied. It's incredible. It's like everything from twin stick shooters to shmup to action games to you name it. It's every form of combat you could imagine in this game. They're not all platinum games do all that though, do they? I mean,
coming from the stable of Vanquish, Bayonetta, you expect it.
I don't remember a twin stick shooter element to Vanquish. Do you know what I mean? I don't.
No, it wasn't.
This has got every form of action combat you've ever experienced in a video game in this game. Sometimes all at once. Yeah. And it's incredible. It's just frenetic, balletic, just bonkers combat. It's nuts. And the world is so weird and the characters are so strange, and yet the places it's starting to go, and I'm still quite early on, and it's asking questions and posing ideas that just are very mature and intelligent. And yeah, now I get it now. I get it why people are talking about this in such lofty tones. Talking about that list might be on the list of games you might want to check out by the end of the year. Very, very good. Quickly, other things from my list. I played some Thumper, Richard.
Thumper, nice.
I beat the X. Boss on the X, yes. It looks really nice. Really, really nice on the X. First of all, when I first bought it, I was playing it on my S, on my 1080p. I was like, this is all right. It's fine. Then I played it on the X. I was like, right. Okay, that's the shit right there. That's the shit right there. That looks unbelievable in 4K. Absolutely gorgeous game. Also, really hard and fucked up as well. Dark, twisted imagery and a very strange control scheme that takes a little bit of getting used to.
It gets much more tricky. If you've only done the first world, I think I've only done the first 3. I've not got that far into it, but it does get pretty challenging. Have you played it, Joel?
No.
You should. I'm not sure what to recommend it to you on, because I've got the Switch version and the PSVR version. Now, throwing a 4K version into the mix, I really don't know which way you should go.
I can't compare
it on something.
I can't compare and contrast, but the resolution and the clarity of it on the on the X, I should say, is just, it's a thing to behold, But I can imagine in VR it would be incredibly immersive and just super transport you to that eldritch world.
You're totally in it, and it's one of those rare VR games that I can play it for a long time and not feel queasy.
Well, that must be good then. There you go. Seal of approval. No vomit from Richard. Joel, I'm going to throw back to you because Heavy Rain. Is this because we keep talking about David Cage in tones of he's just gonna fuck up Detroit? You went back to check out Heavy Rain.
No, it is because we've been talking about it a lot, and you guys are like, Joel, have you ever played a David Cage game? And I'm like, no. So, yeah, I went back and played Heavy Rain. I thought I would get back and try and fill that knowledge gap.
Jason.
Yeah, I found it.
Jason. Jason.
Press X to Jason.
He might not have done that bit yet. He might not even get the reference.
But... I've completed the game. So,
oh, right, okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I found it quite, in places, emotionally engaging. I found the story interesting, but really good in places and a bit weird in others.
Yeah.
I hate QTE games. I felt in some places it worked really well alongside what the themes they were trying to convey in certain scenes. In other places, it was just like, okay, why not just play this to me? Why do I have to interact with it? It feels, it's not much of a game.
The baby scene. It's good practice for you, mate.
Yeah. I know. So, yeah.
Imagine him with his new son. Is it L1?
What do you mean? I played it. So the first option it gives you at the start is like, oh, how well do you know the controller? And it's like, the options are like, I have no idea what a controller is. Like, yeah, I've seen a controller, and yes, I've used a controller. So obviously I choose that. Yeah, I know what the controller is, not realizing that naturally it's just going to be like, okay, so that means we'll just put all these really fucking complicated QTE movements. I would have much preferred it just to play it on the simple mode, I think, with just a button press here and there. Yeah, I felt it was very well done in places. I thought it was pretty weird in others, but overall, I found it quite an interesting experience. I found it quite emotionally engaging in places.
So the two bits that have stayed with me was the gratuitously pointless home invasion / attempted rape dream.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious to think what you thought of that, and then also how the entire kind of plot point of one of the main characters being able to kind of like, what was it, like magically, the origami killer stuff, sort of see into the world and like having these prophetic dreams, and yet that was never resolved. So, okay, what do you think about those two?
So, yeah, Madison's first scene, where it felt, I don't know, it was a bit weird because I think they're trying to introduce her as this character who has insomnia, and I guess that they were trying to visualize insomnia in some way that might make a player understand what it feels like, but that didn't really work for me or achieve, I think, what they were intending to do. The thing that I found most weird about that scene was like the other character in the game, Ethan. In the first sequence, you take him in the shower, and it's literally just like you just walk in the shower and then he just gets out. Whereas this one, they made a very concerted effort to get all these camera angles of Madison in the shower, and you see her take her clothes off really seductively. It seemed all very like, gearing it towards sexualization and stuff like that. And then you get this combat sequence afterwards. It didn't do that. Yeah, that wasn't. Those weren't really the scenes that worked for me. They were the ones I found quite weird and a bit out of place, I guess. And I assume the other parts you're talking about with the origami killer are these sort of flashbacks that Ethan's having, where he thinks he might be the origami killer. It's a bit. I get what they're trying. I think he was trying to sow some confusion into the plot to obviously
it worked.
to try and confuse you as to who might be. And initially you get these feelings that, could it maybe be, but it's a bit weird. How does it all work? But then quickly you pick up on other subtle points in the story that mean that, timeline wise, this doesn't make sense. This wouldn't really work. It's obviously not you.
After playing probably I'd say that still would be the best David Cage game, probably. Definitely better than Beyond and better than Indigo Prophecy, wouldn't you say, Rich?
Well, I bought Beyond recently because that was in the PlayStation sale, and I've played through to the party scene again, and that's bullshit. Yeah,
the game is really bad.
I think it gets good at the end, I've heard, but it seems like it's going to be a long slog to get there. So I've only played the two then. So Fahrenheit I've done, Heavy Rain I've done. Heavy Rain is the best.
Yes. So Joel, Now do you maybe get our concern?
Yeah, I think to some degree, I think I understand more about what to expect from Detroit to become human. Obviously, we've seen two very interestingly contrasting trailers, I guess. One of this portrayal of the of sort of androids fighting for rights and protesting versus, Daddy's very angry.
That just worries me so much.
Things. So yeah, but like I say, I did find some scenes in Heavy Rain exceptionally well. I found the scene where you first after everything after the death of Jason, isn't it, your first son, and you're at home and your marriage is broken down, and you've obviously moved out and you're living in this kind of not such nice house anymore, but you picked your son up from school and you brought him home, and there's this entire air of just like uncomfortableness and like the relationship between you and your son and how it's affected things, and even 2 years down the line, and I felt that work created that and captured that really well and things. And there's that later scene in the playground where you're trying to you've got that uncomfortableness, but then you're trying to use these, push him on the swing and the roundabout. Obviously, being not so great at QTE games, I'm quite a shit father because I couldn't actually do the sequence right to push the roundabout, which then disappointed my child. But I felt those two were really quite well done and things. Those was, like I say, those are the things I think I engaged with most in the story. But yeah, I've got Beyond Two Souls because I bought it and it was like a 2-pack. It was Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls. So
it's quite cheap, wasn't it? It's like 10 quid or something.
I think I paid like £12 on from Argos for it. So I want to go and see what Beyond Two Souls is about now, but obviously I'm a bit I know that you guys are just like, it's a bit too much, that one. So I want to see, does it just take some of the more weirder sequences and crank them up even higher? Because Detroit Beyond Human looks like it cranks it even more to the extreme.
The problem with Beyond is that it just offers them without any context, because everything is compartmentalized within its own sort of window of time, and it doesn't really make much effort to draw a link between the sequence of events.
You know what that is, though, don't you? The problem with what's happened there is David Cage is a failed filmmaker, right? So here's a man who wants to tell interesting, innovative narrative, but he's like, well, I'm making video games, so I should make use of the ability to tell stories in a non-linear format.
Yeah.
But why, David? Because I can. Oh, okay, cool.
And that literally, anything. I mean,
it's pointless.
You get the great films that mess with the linearity of time. There's stuff like Memento or Dunkirk recently did it quite well. There are films that play with time to good effect. This just does it for the I don't know why.
For the crack.
Yeah. Just because he wants to be a director, but it doesn't do anything.
Do you know what he feels like? He feels like somebody who wants to be referred to as an auteur but has never earned that. And it's like you're not Kojima, mate. You're not. You gotta have to make some good games before you get called an auteur.
And you can tell how little it matters, because I think they've patched this in since from the PS4 version that I've downloaded. You can reorder the entire game into chronological sequence.
Really? That's quite a dramatic narrative delivery, isn't it? Like, God, wow.
Jesus Christ, that's terrible. I had no idea. That's ridiculous. What was the point of any of that then? It's kind of like, if you wanted to watch, you can watch Memento, can't you, on the DVD in the right order?
Oh, yeah, you can. But why would you?
This is quite a boring thriller. Fine. Not much actually happens. I don't like Memento anyway, but there you go.
Oh, it's one of my favourite films. I love Memento.
Really? Yeah. You fucking hipster student. What are you like? Jesus Christ. Next you'll be telling me how important Donnie Darko was to you. But I think that brings us to the end. We had a few more games on our list, but I don't know. I don't want to talk about Assassin's Creed Origins anymore or Wolfenstein 2. I'm like, I want to play some more. We're going to talk about all of these games again, I think, on our list. Like Joel had Prey on there and stuff. And it's like, these are the games I think are going to come up in a month or so's time. There's a lot of experiences there that personal game of the year. We've got our category-based podcasts as well coming. There'll be at least 2. I can guarantee that. And then we'll have our game of the year list, and then we'll have our final top 10 list for the site as well. So there's going to be much discussion. So before we go, what games are on your backlog list? Maybe that you've not started yet, maybe that you want to complete. You know, Richard wants to compile a little swapsy list so we can play the games each of us have loved. But what's on there right now that you need to hammer out?
Wolfenstein 2 for me. I've just started it today,
Awesome.
properly, and I'm at the bit where you're on the boat, and you know, the first walking
submarine.
The first walking round bit,
right before when you get out of the thing.
Yeah, and you
well.
So you're, okay, right.
We'll do
so you're at the
spoiler-free when we
start.
get to the Game of the Year podcast. But yeah, okay, yeah. The bit with the guns and the Nazis.
The bit with the guns. No, you know what I mean. The first bit where you're not shooting stuff and you've got a chance to walk around. And
when you're in the social space.
You've got to the hub. You're in the hub to start with. And yeah. You've got quite a way to go actually in the story. The plot develops a lot more. So yeah, stick
I'm
with
enjoying it so far. It's good.
Joel, I will say the bit with Daddy was awesome, wasn't it? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that game, just when you think it's kind of gone as far as it can, it always manages to go a little bit further.
Just when you think you've seen the biggest robot, they find another one that's even bigger. That seems to be the law of the Wolfenstein universe. There's always a bigger robot. What? So that's your number 1 right now, Richard. Anything else? Are you going to give anybody else going to give Assassin's Creed Origins a go? Because that is going to be high on my list.
I don't think I'll have time. And it's that's the thing. I read a lot of positive things about it, but yeah, there are other games I want to play more. Like Nier Automata has been on my playlist, my reminders list for quite a while. I know
one Richard should say we should be on mine and yours list, Joel, which is
Hellblade.
Yes, Hellblade as well. I want to play that. Prey was another one that I have just finished.
Oh, cool.
I thought that was excellent. So have you played that? I know Ben has. Richard,
yeah.
Did you go beyond the demo?
No, I'm kind of toying with it at the moment because it's in that 2 for $25 deal on PlayStation. And they haven't patched it for X. I don't think they're planning to either.
No, it's not on the Bethesda list, sadly.
It's not patched. But I bought it for simply a tenner. It cost me a tenner retail, and for that, it's outstanding value. What you get, that's brilliant, very, very well executed.
I may be picking that up with Gravity Rush 2 this week.
What did I say, Richard? I saw in the sale that I was thinking about picking up on PlayStation. I can't bloody remember now. I told you about it last night. I said Gravity Rush, and there was something else, wasn't it? Where I was Wipeout. Wipeout. Not a Game of the Year contender, but still a fucking awesome game, I'm sure.
I've got that. I've never actually played it. It came with my PS4 Pro.
That's like the showcase for your TV.
Yeah. I know. I need to. Well, Horizon would be my. That's a showcase for 4K and HDR.
That's a showcase for everything.
Yeah, it's stunning.
It's gonna be like the battle of the fucking open world, isn't it? Like when we get into the top 10 list.
No.
So the things I need to finish off. I need to put more time into Zelda. I need to put more time into Horizon. I need to put more time into. Well, I've done a lot of ACO now, but I'm enjoying it so much that world.
You need to finish. Have you not finished Zelda yet?
No.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Still really early on.
What do I do with you? Finish Zelda.
Well, my God, my hands are, I just don't have the time. I want to. I need to, do it and stuff. But it's beautiful and compelling and lovely.
Take it with you to work. Do it at work.
Well, that is true. I have an office, so I could just sit in there when I'm pretending to be working. And
it works like Damien Green does, is it?
Hide my Switch somewhere every so often. That's a good idea. I like that. I've got there's so many games in there, Joel. So what else? What's on your list, Joel?
What remains of Edith Finch, I think, but you've both played that now, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I bought that. I've done the first bit. I did the first vignette with the cat.
Okay,
the rest of that.
You need to play to the end, Ben.
Oh, I'm gonna. I just wanted to see what it was like on the X. So you said there were some pop-in problems, Rich. There are, but they're only like right at the beginning of the level, and they don't seem to happen that often anymore in the game. It's definitely improved over the S. Load times are much better as well.
Really?
So there are improvements. Yeah.
Right. I only played it on the X, and I didn't think it was that great, but it's not like it got in my way. I thought it was a fantastic game.
Yeah, I'm gonna just push through that.
Want to talk about it now?
Nope.
I'll save it. Okay.
Save
There's
it.
some.
Save it.
Save it until you finish, Ben, because there are bits. Yeah,
yeah. I don't want spoilers. I've somehow avoided spoilers on that, so I do want to see things more fully. I'm sure there's so many. Trust me, we'll start. I'm actually going to start on the Matrix tonight, guys. So I will get that formatted and send it over to you guys, so we can start comparing and looking at areas we need to all play if possible. So that brings us to the last proper podcast of 2017. It's been a great year for games. It's been a shitty year for everything else.
Politics, yes.
Pretty much everything else. Just there are sex offenders and pedophiles throughout Hollywood, it would seem, and the world now, everywhere, just constantly. The developers closing left and right. Horrible things with politics. Yeah, if you've got a hero, they're probably an awful human that you find out later on. That's just the way it is.
It's the perfect time to escape into the fantasy of video games where things aren't so shit.
So what you need to do is spend at least £10,000 on microtransactions, and you will feel like a more whole human being. That's that'll be the way to do it. But look, yeah, we've had like one of the like standout best years for games. I think it's what we're going to be talking about. It's like really impressive stuff.
Very strong games, yeah.
Yeah, very good. And that's ostensibly what we're here to talk about. Richard, at some point we should talk about wrestling, but I don't know when we'll do that.
Sounds very personal. You sure you don't want to keep that to your private channel?
There was a short-lived podcast series. Maybe we should revive that. But yeah, that's episode 37 of Bxb'S Bits and Bobs. You can find us at bxbgames.co.uk. You can find us on iTunes with Bxb Games. You can find us on Facebook at Bxb Games. YouTube is Bxb Games. How strange is that? Richard can be found at Colonel Red on Twitter. I can be found at DIYE. Joel is a figment of your imagination and purely exists in the Matrix. So you can't find him on any social media. And that is that. See you all in 2018.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.